Are you ready to hear a story the church tried to bury forever? A story that challenges the very foundations of Christianity, shifting the focus from the traitor to the disciple, from the treacherous Judas to a follower who carried out his teacher's most crucial instruction. This is not the canonical tale familiar to billions. This is the forbidden testimony. An apocrypha. The Gospel of Judas. Imagine this: Egypt, the 1970s. In a dark, damp cave, where the air is thick with the scent of millennia, amidst clay shards and desert dust, a Coptic peasant unearths a crate of papyri. He has no idea he is holding one of the greatest keys to understanding early Christianity. A manuscript that lay forgotten for over 1,600 years. For years, the text wandered the black market of antiquities, until finally, passing through the hands of scholars and restorers, it revealed its secret. It was the Gospel of Judas Iscariot. A text considered lost for centuries, mentioned only in the condemnations of church fathers who called it a heresy. What does this ancient papyrus reveal? It turns the familiar story of betrayal upside down. Here, Judas is not the greedy traitor who sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver. No. He is the closest and most faithful disciple, the only one who truly understood Jesus. In this apocryphon, Jesus himself asks Judas to betray him, revealing to him the deep mysteries of existence. You will become the 13th, and you will be cursed by the other generations, and you will come to rule over them, he tells Judas. The betrayal becomes not a crime, but an act of supreme obedience, a sacrifice no other apostle could have undertaken. Judas takes upon himself the burden of the curse of all future generations to fulfill the divine plan. He is not a villain. He is a tragic hero, the key figure in the drama of salvation. But why, then, was this story excluded from the Bible? Who decided we shouldn't know it, and why? In 325 AD, at the First Council of Nicaea, convened by order of Emperor Constantine, the canon, the official list of sacred books, was formed. The Church, becoming a state institution, needed unity. The idea that betrayal could have been a divine will was dangerous. It undermined the authority of the other apostles, creating an alternative, secret tradition, Gnosticism. The Gnostics believed that salvation came not through faith or good deeds, but through deep, esoteric knowledge, gnosis, accessible only to a select few. Judas, in this system, is the one who received the highest knowledge. The Church could not allow the existence of such a privileged path. This raises conspiratorial questions. Have we lived for centuries in a distorted reality, crafted by the victors of history? Perhaps the image of Judas as the embodiment of evil was necessary to divert attention from more inconvenient truths? From the fact that God may demand from a person not only faith and love, but also a terrible, immoral act from a mortal's perspective? History is full of examples where those who go against the system are declared traitors, and their testimonies are destroyed. What could this mean for us today? Analyzing these texts, we face fundamental questions about free will, good and evil, the nature of obedience, and the price of salvation. If the betrayal was part of the plan, can Judas even be blamed? Who, then, bears the responsibility? And is the greatest sacrifice not the physical death on the cross, but the eternal curse and disgrace taken on by the one who carried out the most important will? The philosophical conclusion of this story is staggering. The Gospel of Judas is not just an alternative look at the past. It is a mirror held up to our understanding of faith, authority, and truth. It reminds us that history is always written by the victors, but sometimes the shadows of the past desperately try to call out to us. This manuscript is one such voice. It does not provide answers, but poses powerful questions. Are we ready to hear them? Can we accept that sometimes the deepest mysteries may lie not in sainthood, but in betrayal, and that the line between them can be so thin that our morality is incapable of discerning it? Listen to this whisper of the ages. For it tells us that sometimes, to find salvation, one must have the courage to lose their soul. What makes this discovery even more astounding is its context. The Gospel of Judas was not a standalone text. It was part of the so-called Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of early Christian manuscripts discovered in Egypt in 1945. This library was a time capsule, preserving a spectrum of beliefs that the emerging Orthodox Church would later condemn as heresy. Among these texts were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and other Gnostic writings that presented a radically different version of Christianity, one focused on inner knowledge, divine sparks within humanity, and a complex cosmology of intermediary deities. The Gnostics viewed the material world not as a pure creation of a benevolent God, but as a flawed construct, often the work of a lesser, ignorant deity they called the demiurge. In this light, the act of Judas takes on an even more profound and controversial meaning. If the material world is a prison, then perhaps Judas's act of handing over Jesus to the earthly authorities was not a betrayal of God's plan, but a crucial step in liberating Christ's divine spirit from its physical confines. By facilitating the crucifixion, Judas might have been helping Jesus to shed his mortal coil and return to the true, transcendent God beyond this world. This interpretation transforms the narrative from a story of moral failure into a cosmic drama of liberation, making Judas not just an obedient disciple, but a co-liberator in the process of salvation. This perspective, however, was intolerable for the institutional church. A religion seeking to establish a universal creed, a clear moral code, and a structured hierarchy could not accommodate such a subversive and esoteric idea. The notion that salvation could be achieved through a secret, transgressive act of betrayal known only to a spiritual elite was a direct threat to the authority of bishops and the sacraments. The canon had to be clear: Judas was a villain, a cautionary tale about greed and disloyalty. The messy, theologically ambiguous, and philosophically challenging narrative of the Gnostic texts had to be erased to build a unified and controllable religious empire. The conspiracy, therefore, may not have been a single, secret meeting, but a slow, systematic process of selection and suppression over centuries. Texts that reinforced the message of a unified church, apostolic succession, and clear sin and redemption narratives were promoted. Those that introduced complexity, duality, and secret knowledge were marginalized, banned, and ultimately lost to history until a peasant's chance discovery in the 20th century brought them back into the light, forcing us to reread, rethink, and question the very bedrock of a faith that has shaped the Western world. Forcing us to question if the greatest sacrifice was not on the cross, but in accepting eternal infamy. The whisper of Judas echoes: what if some truths demand we lose our soul to be found?